Welcome back to Skyhope. My name is Danielle Boyd, and 3 months ago I walked into my great-grandmother's library, expecting to borrow a single book for my daughter. Instead, I found 217 empty shelves. At first, I thought the collection had been moved for cleaning. Maybe someone was reorganizing the room or preparing the books for preservation work. But after a few seconds, reality hit me. The shelves weren't temporarily empty, every single book was gone. The room still looked familiar, with polished oak shelves lining the walls, the reading chair beside the window, and afternoon sunlight spilling across the floorboards. But something important had disappeared. My 10-year-old daughter, Ivy, was still sitting in the car finishing her sandwich, completely unaware that a collection she loved more than almost anything had vanished while we were away. These weren't ordinary books. For decades, my great-grandmother, Cordelia Boyd, had carefully collected rare editions of classic children's literature. Each book carried history, memories, and, most importantly, a handwritten inscription, "For Ivy, who will keep them safe." My daughter would trace those words with her finger every time she opened a book. It was her ritual, a promise between generations, or at least, it had been. Because while Ivy and I were away for just over a week, someone made a decision they had absolutely no right to make. Someone decided those books were worth more as cash than as a family legacy, and that someone was my own parents. Without asking permission, without making a phone call, and without speaking to me or Ivy, they sold the entire collection, all 217 books, gone. When I eventually discovered what they had done, most people expected me to react emotionally. They expected shouting, arguments, and a dramatic family confrontation, but none of that happened. I didn't raise my voice, threaten anyone, or even argue. Instead, I sat down at my kitchen table, opened an old folder of documents, and started reading. Inside was a legal agreement my great-grandmother had signed years earlier, a document so specific and carefully written that almost everyone had forgotten it existed, including my parents. What they thought was a quick financial decision was actually something very different because those books didn't legally belong to them. Hidden inside one overlooked clause was a consequence they never saw coming. For the next 9 days, I followed a trail of paperwork, signatures, tax records, foundation documents, and property agreements. The deeper I looked, the more I realized my great-grandmother had anticipated this exact situation years before it happened. By the end of that week, the people who sold the books were facing a reality far more expensive than the money they received, a reality that would change their lives forever. And when the final conversation happened, even the neighbors stopped what they were doing to watch. What began as a missing collection of books became a lesson about trust, family, responsibility, and the cost of ignoring a promise. This is the story of how a quiet woman, a determined little girl, and one forgotten legal document changed everything. And trust me, the empty shelves were only the beginning.